Good evening, chaps and chapasses. So, if you haven't already watched them, watch the other videos first, the introduction and also the one about harvesting the data from the exchange. This is another video on how the system then goes on to take that data and classify it as a signal to enter a trade. So, for those of you that have seen it, obviously this is primarily the signaling is based off strat combos. So one of the other reasons why I harvest the data from the exchange and save it into a database first, something that I did mention before, is the fact that it doesn't matter what exchange this comes from. We could be harvesting the data from Qcoin or Binance or FTX or anywhere. Hello, Wilfred. Or anywhere like that. But it doesn't matter what exchange and what format it comes in from, because everything else works off the same database from now on. So I've basically saved the open, high, low, close and volume of each candle for all the time frames that it's looking at. So then what I do is I go into every pair, and it's basically an ongoing loop constantly all the time, and for every pair that's in there it takes the past and including the current one 4 candles and it categorizes them for that time frame. So like for the 1 minute it looks at 4 candles and it decides what they are. On the 15 minute, I'm going through exactly what it does on the day trading one. On the 15 minute it takes 4 candles, classifies them, and so on and so forth until it's done all of the time frames it's looking at. And currently this one is looking at the 1 minute, the 15, the 30, the 1 hour, the 4 hour and the daily. So it gets the pair, it goes in and classifies at each one of them, and then finds out the current continuity, the current direction. And basically time frame continuity, it's just a big word for whether it's going up or down on all time frames. So if on every time frame the current candle is green, like on the 1 minute it's green, on the 5 minute it's green, on the 15 it's green, so on and so forth, then if they're all green, then good, you full time frame continuity. So bearing that in mind, so let's take the time frame continuity first. So I look at the last candle to come in, the current candle for each time frame, and I classify it as a 1 or a 0. It's either going up or it's going down. It's as simple as that. And then I put that into a string, so it looks binary, 0 1 1 0 0 1 0. Okay, now there's 2 reasons for this. The first reason is it's quite easy to shift your time frame continuity decision based on the substring of the string. So if you're looking at, if you want, like at the moment I've got the 1 minute on, that is not part of time frame continuity for the day trading one. For the day trading one it is only interested, or intraday, it's only interested on the 15 minutes, the 30, the 1 hour, the 4 hour and the daily. So but I've also got the 1 minute in there. But what the entire system does, because it works off so many, is it's got all of them. So it's an array of 1s and 0s. So for each engine, whether it's the sniper at the bottom, whether it's the intraday trader or whether it's the swing trader, it takes a substring of it. So for the intraday trader, let's just say that you've only got 1 minute, 15, 30 and hourly. So you want the last 3, so that will be 0 1 1 1 for time frame continuity. If it was 0 0 1 1, you wouldn't have time frame continuity. If it was 1 0 0 0, you would, because the last 3 digits are all the same. So all you're basically doing is saying if the last 3 digits, or however many for what your time frame continuity is, for that substring, if they are all 1, it's going up. If they are all 0, it's going down. If they are different, if they are anything else, it's in conflict. Okay, so that's for each time frame. So then we know whether every single one of them is going up or every single one is going down. The other reason that I classify these as ones and zeros and use them in the display is because you can see the wave coming through the exchange. So if you put ones and zeros in there, if you're on time frame continuity to the upside, if everything is a 1, okay, but you're looking at the, let's say, the hourly, the 4 hourly, the daily and the weekly, and that's what you're focused on, you actually don't know what's coming through the system when you're just looking at that time frame. So what having all the ones and zeros is that there's another 4 or 5 digits to the left hand side that could be anything on its way through. They could all be starting to go down, but you wouldn't know until it hit the hourly. Well, if you've got all the ones and zeros in front of you, you can look at that and go, okay, yeah, I've got time frame continuity for this part, but actually there's a 0 come through on the 1 minute, and then it carried on to the 3 minute and the 5 minute, and you can see it going down. So you know that you need to be thinking about exiting that trade a little bit earlier than what the strat would teach you in the full time frame continuity, or at least look for a reversal. A good one that Rob mentioned was when it fails on the hourly, look for a reversal back into time frame continuity on the lower time frames. So that's the whole thing about time frame continuity. That's why I use what looks like binary code. Now, looking for strat setups is a smidgen more complex, if that. So this is a bit of a weird one. I have a few filters on there, and basically if you're looking for the strat combos, again, go and look at Cyberdog's and Sarah's and Rob's, because are far better well versed to be teaching you about this. I'm more about the math behind it all. All of the setups are, as far as software goes, are basically a load of bollocks, because you don't need to know whether it's a 312 or a 322 or a 212. It matters not. As far as software goes, you just need a vector. You need something with a direction, a 2, and a magnitude, up or down. That's it. That's all it is. So you don't need all of those combos. You can go, okay, I've got a 2 up or a 2 down. So the way that I classify them is I take each candle. So this is the candle before. Let's say we have a 2-1. So we have a one that broke the high, let's say, of a previous bar. And then we have an inside, so the high is lower than the high of the previous, and the low is higher than the low of the previous. I think that was right. So we have a 2 and a 1. Now we're looking for a 2, so we need one that either has a high that breaks the previous high with a low that is higher than the previous low, or the other side. Okay, so if it breaks the previous high, it is 2 up. If it breaks the previous low, it is 2 down. If it is a 2 up or a 2 down, then in that case it's a signal. It's as simple as that. But I trace more because this is important. So you're either going up or you're going down. Now the other thing to bear in mind is you could be going up, you could be failing and coming back through the range. So if you had if you broke into a 1, and then we went from the middle of the 1, and then we broke to a 2, we broke the high, so we became a 2 up, but then we started falling back down. If it's there, it's still a 2 up. If it's there, it's still right at the arse end of the 1. Before it breaks the bottom, it is still a 2 up. When it breaks the arse of the 1, we have a low that's lower than the low of the 1 before, candle before, and we have a high that is higher than the candle before. it becomes an outside bar, a broadening formation. So it is no longer a 2 anyway. But it is important to remember that a 2 up that fails is still a 2 up. The reason why it's important is because if it's a 2 up that's failing, you need to make a decision on that. Is the arse going to drop out of this, and do you really want to be entering the trade? Because as software, you look at that and think, oh, that's going, yeah, that's going up. So it's a 2 up, I'm just going to take it. But actually, when it comes into time frame continuity, when you look at it and it triggers, that 2 up might go into continuity way late. And that's the other thing as well, you need to monitor the time. So another thing that's important is we're classifying like a 2-1-2 there, okay? So we've got a 2-1-2. Let's say we're looking at the hourly, okay? And we broke the high of the hourly at, let's say we broke the high at 100. And let's say the previous candle was 120, okay? So we got to 115 at 1 hour, at 55 minutes into that hour. So we've got 5 minutes left of that hour, but we've only got $5 between that for the first take profit. So you need to think, you've only got 5 minutes left of that hour for that candle to play out. Is it really going to do that? Personally, to ensure quality of signals and the amount, I bin those. There's not enough time in the hour, because once that candle has played out, as far as that's concerned, we are into a different territory, a different setup, a different signal. If that's the case, I scale back. I don't, that's a signal, but it's not a quality signal, so I log it, but I log the quality alongside it as well. It's one to bear in mind. Same with when you go in 2 up. If it is a 2 up, but it's falling back through the range, it's a signal, but it's not good enough for me. So it gets logged, and then I can look at that signal and make a decision. What do I need to tweak with the system for it to either see that signal as good or bad? Okay. So we've looked at the classification of the combos, which are either 2U. So if you classify your combos, okay, a 1 is always a 1, it's never directional, so it doesn't matter if there's a U or a D underneath it. Doesn't give two tits about that. If you've got an outside bar, if you've got a 3, okay, the continuity of the 3, whether it's going up or whether it's going down, okay, we save that. We save the continuity of the candle, where the candle is going, what the direction is, but not the direction of the candle when it was made, if you know what I mean. So if it was a 2 up, then it's a U, there's a U, but it might be red, so the continuity might be going against it. So when we're doing the setups like that, I use 2, as in literally the string, 2U, 1, 2U, let's say. That's a 2-1-2, so it's a dip. No, it's not, that's a load of bollocks. So it was an up, and then down, and then up, yeah. So that's how I would classify it. The system sees it as a 2U, 1, 2U. So if it's got a 2U, so I take the last 2 characters of that string, and if it's a 2U, it's a long. If it's a 2D, it's a short. It's as simple as that. And if it's a short, then it looks at the previous lows to get its targets. It's that simple. And that's the other reason why you or I would save the data into the database, because you can then look back. Because if you're not doing that, if you're doing it on the past 4 candles and you're working off the 30 minute, let's say, or the 5 minute or the 15 minute, fuck it. So you're working off the 15 minute, you're going to need to save a shitload of candles or on different time scales to look back and get some targets, because it will need all of that. It will need to be able to look back in time to get those targets, otherwise how's it going to know? So, and the last thing you want to be doing is getting a signal and then having to poll which is the wrong thing to do, the Binance historical climbs to find targets, because that's not the way to be doing it. That shouldn't be done anyway, because it's not something that you should be regularly referring back to, and obviously it'll just slow you down. So don't be that dick. It's quite that simple. So that's it. That's basically how I get them all. I classify them using a string, using the last two characters. If it's a setup, great, then it looks at the time frame continuity, the binary part of it. If we're in time frame continuity and we've got a signal, oh, this is another perler. If we've got time frame continuity and we've got a signal, then it sends it to a signaler. So it saves the signal and says, I think this is a quality signal. Now this is where the signaler picks up and goes, that's a load of bollocks, that, or that's good, depending on what it thinks. But as far as the strat combos go, it's a signal. Now, I say that using, and I'm nearly done now, I say that using a 2U or a 2D, you can just do it off that, but bear in mind, if you're going to use a 2U or a 2D and just signal, you are best off actually looking at the entire setup. So whether it was a 2-1-2 or a 3-1-2 or a 2-2 continuation to the upside or the downside, I use the first one to know whether there's a setup there or not before I go and save any classification details. And if it is, then I take what classification, what setup it is, whether it's a 2-1-2, a 3-1-2, a 2-2 or whatever. I then save it against that signal, because then I can look at the signals, the strength of the signals, the difference between the entry and the take profits, and I can do some post-processing on it, some data analyst, and analyze the data on it to see which signals over time are stronger. Which, if you're doing algorithmic trading, you can do, because this thing is generated over 200 trades a day, just off 20 pairs. So that's one to bear in mind. Always think of how you're going to save the data, how you're going to use the data. And as far as databases go, it's not that hard. I probably generate around about 8 million queries a day, twice as much calculations on the data, so it's not bad. The database, well, it's 5 gig a day coming down the net, so it's not a lot of data, and that's not all data to be saved. That is sometimes, like on the hourly, you constantly get a stream every 250 milliseconds of that hourly candle. Well, that's just an update, that's not new data coming in. So a portion of that 5 or 6 gig is new data coming in. That's it. So that's probably the longest one that you're going to get out of me. Not sure how much of the signaler I will cover, because that is based in AI, and I'd like to keep that one as close to my chest as possible, because that gives me the edge. But certainly there are plenty of others, including the ordering system and how to put on the orders correctly, cancel them correctly, and monitor your accounts. So I hope you're all doing well. It looks like Bitcoin's just failed to break 50, but it is trying, so happy days. Hope you've all had a good weekend, and I will catch you all later. Ta-da!